Everybody can. All right, everybody, we are all set up. Here. Everybody's able to see the slides up on the screen. So somebody's online signal whether you can see those. Anybody?
Say that again, Matt.
Can you just let me know if you can see the slides or not?
Yeah, so I'm seeing it in presenter mode.
Okay, great. Well, we'll just do this. We'll just watch it this way. I'm sorry. Just not breaking today. Well, we'll just have to watch it in presenter view, I guess. So I apologize about that, but I don't think there's a, I can't figure out a better way to. That work?
That's it.
Okay. All right. So welcome everybody to today's TARPO RTCC meeting. Teresa Thompson is not with us today, so Jack Meadows, who's the vice chair, will be chairing today's meeting. And I guess I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you, Matt, for providing this both in person and virtually. Welcome everybody to our bi-monthly or every other month, April 14th, 2022 RTCC TARPO meeting. Beginning of the meeting, we always do introductions. So I'm Jack Meadows. I'm the planning director of the town of Solid City and have been with TARPO from its inception.
Captain Board for the Development Engineer for Division 8.
I'm Brandon Johnson. I'm a planner with Chatham County. I'm Eric Caravory. I'm just visiting. I'm with Summit Design and Engineering Services.
So can everybody hear us well? I want to make sure that's.
Yeah, Jack, I can hear you. I think keeping the volume up is good.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
So I'm going to read down the list of names that I got earlier, and if there's anybody whose name I don't read off, if you can come on at the end and give us your name. So I have Brian Kluchar, Darren Burrich, David Montgomery, Deborah Ensminger, Deron Monroe, Julie Bogle, Morgan DeWitt, BJ Grieve, Matthew Kitchen, Tom Tenite, and Danielle Orloff. And is there anybody else on the call whose name I didn't just read off? All to the next item.
Yeah, next item on the agenda is the purpose and agenda for today's meeting. Matt, I'll let you take that over.
So we have 3 decision items on the agenda today, adoption of next year's work program, and then 2 requests for resolutions. And then there is one item I would like to add to our discussion item that was not in the original agenda that went out. This is some information I just got within the last day or 2 from the spot office regarding the schedule for the STIP process. So
Is that a 5P?
that would be a 6E. So we'll need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Yeah, I'll ask that motion to approve the amended agenda.
Tom Tenike, Orange County, I'll make that motion.
All right, got a motion?
Brian Kluchar, second.
Thank you. Got a second. Matt, I'll let you do roll call for both.
Yeah.
But you're gonna add us in here.
Yeah, so we'll just do the whole thing by roll call, so including the folks who are in the room, just when I say your name, just say yes or no. Give me a second to run that list and check out which people are voting today. Okay. So Matt Day, yes. Jack Meadows,
Yes.
Brandon Dawson,
Yeah.
Brian Kluchar,
Yes.
Darren Burridge,
Yes.
David Montgomery,
Yes.
Deborah Ensminger,
Yes.
Julie Bogle,
Yes.
Morgan DeWitt,
Yes.
BJ Greed,
Yes, Matt Day.
Tom Tenike,
Yes.
and Danielle Orloff.
Yes.
Okay, that is unanimous.
Next item is public comment. This is opportunity for the public to provide comment. If there are any, please share that comment at this time.
So I will say there was a citizen that sent in an emailed comment, but I believe they're planning to attend the TAC meeting at noon. So if they attend, they'll give their comment at that meeting. If they don't, then I'll read their comment.
Okay. Anybody else have public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of our meeting summary from February 10th, 2021. Take a motion to do.
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
All right, we have a motion.
This is the meeting summary. Right?
Meeting summary, yeah.
You know what I said?
Yeah, I think he said it. Motion to approve.
Yeah, we're looking for a second.
Brian Kluchar, second.
Thank you. Matt, I'll let you take over roll call.
Okay. Matt Day, yes. Jack Meadows.
Yes.
Brandon Dawson.
Yeah.
Brian Kluchar.
Yes.
Darren Burridge.
Yes.
David Montgomery.
Yes.
Deborah Ensminger.
Yes. Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
BJ Greed.
Yes, Matt Day.
Tom Tenike.
Yes.
And Danielle Wolf.
Yes.
To the next item, which is start of our decision items. Item 5A is adoption of fiscal year 2023 planning work program. Matt, what do you have for us?
All right, so I did develop a draft of our work program for next year based on looking at last year's work program and then also based on the input that y'all provided at your February meeting. That draft was submitted to NCDOT for their review in late February and was posted online for a public review period starting in early March. I have not received any comments on that draft either from NCDOT or from the public. So what is reflected in the work program in terms of revenue, on the revenue side, we're looking at a continuation of the same federal funding amount that we received through DOT. That's 110,486. That is matched by 27,622 in local match. But we actually charge the local dues in a way that provides a little bit of supplemental funding beyond the 20% match requirement. And so that supplemental amount there is 8,370. On the expense side, we do not typically program the supplemental amount by line item. We have a document that kind of lays out the types of tasks that the supplement can be used for. And that is meeting food, because we can't use the federal funds for that. And then any other tasks in our regular work programs that go over the regular budget amount. But then within the regular work program, we have to divide it into various categories. So we have 15,000 in data collection and assessment, 20,000 in CTP development, 10,000 in prioritization, 10,000 in program and project development, 20,000 in general transportation planning, 28,039 in administrative activities, 4,600 in direct costs. So that's things like mileage and hotel costs and things like that. And then 30,469 in indirect. Are there any questions about that? All right. So staff is recommending that the planning work program be adopted. It is two separate documents. So there's the planning work program itself, which is the table and the narrative. And then there is the supplemental document that governs that additional local funding. All of those documents can be found in your packet.
Any further discussion? The supplements on page 10 in my packet. And the charts are on several pages, or tables, I should say. All right, we'll be looking for a motion to approve if that's the wishes of the committee. Did I hear a motion?
This is Julie. I motion to approve.
Now, we have a motion. Need a second?
Tom Tenike, Orange County, second.
Thank you. We have a motion second. Now, I'll let you do roll call.
All right. Matt Day, yes. Jack Meadows,
Yes.
Brandon Thompson,
Yes.
Ryan Kluchar,
Yes.
Aaron Burridge,
Yes.
David Montgomery,
Yes.
Deborah Ensminger,
Yes.
Julie Vogel,
Yes.
Morgan DeWitt,
Yes.
EJ Green,
Yes, Matt Day.
Tom Tenite,
Yes.
and Danielle Orloff.
Yes.
That is unanimous.
All right, thank you, Matt. Item 5B is a resolution of support for the S-Line Raise Grant application. Dan Sam.
All right, so I know we've talked about the S-Line a few times in these meetings. NCDOT is working with several communities currently along the S-Line corridor, and that would include the city of Sanford on planning for some potential future rail services, mainly looking at a commuter rail type service that would run between roughly the Sanford area and the Henderson area, kind of running through Raleigh along the way. TARPO has approved resolutions of support for this project twice in the past. In February of 2020, we approved a resolution of support for NCDOT to pursue funding to purchase the corridor from CSX. And then in December of 2020, we had a resolution of support for an application that NCDOT was working on to do some transit-oriented development planning in the corridor. And that transit-oriented development planning is actually currently underway. So just to give you sort of an idea of where the corridor is, here's a map of it. This is a line that is currently owned by CSX. Once upon a time, way back, it was a sort of main line that ran up and down the East Coast. But at some point in the past, I want to say in the 80s, the section up in Virginia was removed. And so currently, once you get up to Norlina and Warren County, this line just dead ends. And so that's part of the reason why there's a potential interest in CSX selling the line, because it's a line that gets less use. And it's also a key part of the planned future, way in the future, but Southeast high-speed rail corridor that would connect from Raleigh up towards Richmond and continue over there. So NCDOT is once again trying to get some grant funds. This time they are putting in a grant for planning for mobility hubs. So this will be more specifically looking at actual station sites and what those stations could look like, what kind of transit, bike ped, and those types of connections would be necessary to make this all function in an integrated way. And NCDOT has once again asked for TARPO support for that grant application. I have drafted a resolution of support. It's in your packet, but NCDOT's application, I believe, was actually due today. So we already actually provided them with a letter indicating our support, contingent on approving the resolution today. And I do recommend approval of the resolution. And
Matt, this is David Montgomery, Lee County, Sanford. Recommend approval of the raised grant application.
Motion.
Brian Kluchar, second.
All right, we've got a second. Just quick question. It's mentioned Wake Forest and Sanford in the resolution.
yeah,
Is there other communities that are support?
there are. It's just it mentions Wake Forest specifically because they're the one actually submitting the application.
All right, we have a motion second. Matt, I'll let you do roll call.
Matt Day, yes. Jack Meadows,
Yes.
Brandon Dawson,
Yes.
Brian Kluchar,
Yes.
Darren Burridge,
Yes.
David Montgomery,
Yes.
Deborah Ensminger,
Yes.
Julie Vogel,
Yes.
Morgan DeWitt,
Yes.
BJ Green,
Yes, Matt Day.
Tom Tenite,
Yes.
Danielle Orloff.
Yes.
That is unanimous. So our next item is a resolution related to US Bicycle Route 1. So US Bike Route 1 is a long distance on-road bike touring route. So it's a route that is intended for folks that are like serious long distance kind of bike riders. And it runs through multiple states. The North Carolina section of the route was designated back in 1982 and hasn't really changed a whole lot since then. As part of some discussions we were having related to a STIP project, U5975, which is going to be doing super street improvements on US 1 in the tramway area. The discussion came up about potentially rerouting a section of US Bike Route 1 to avoid that area. For any folks who aren't familiar, the tramway area is kind of congested, and US 1 is obviously a pretty high volume facility. And there's actually a short segment of US Bike Route 1 that has to travel along US 1 to connect between two roads. And so the idea was to try to reroute it to avoid that area, especially since once the super street improvements go in, it would actually make it even more difficult for a bike to navigate, and have it cross US 1 at a better location. And so as a result of that, I put together a couple of potential alternative routes for us to look at, which I call A, B, C, and D. You can see them on the map on the screen. So the red line on the map on the screen is the current route. And you can see that black box is the project area for the super street improvements. And all of the proposed alternatives would avoid that area by crossing US 1 further north at a grade separated location. So I did a little bit of analysis work on each of the options, and you have a document in your packet that goes into a little more detail on this, but kind of compared things like length, how much elevation change there was, traffic volumes were, whether there were segments that were traveling along higher volume, higher traffic segments of road, and then how many of sort of more complex intersections the route had to go through. And so compared all those options as well as comparing them to the existing. And long story short, it came out looking like option B was probably the best option. It actually scored the best in terms of the traffic volumes. It doesn't have any segments that use high volume roads. It only has two, what I consider more complex intersections, as compared to, as many as 7 on a couple of the options. And then on the length and elevation change, it came in second, but it's really pretty close to the first place option as well. So that's where we're at today. What I've done is I've drafted up a resolution, and what would need to happen is, because this is a official route that was designated at the national level, we basically have to make a request to NCDOT, and then NCDOT will then have to turn around and submit a request to the national level to make the change to the route. So the resolution requests that NCDOT begin that process. Any questions?
There's no questions. Looking for a motion to consider the resolution.
This is David Montgomery, Sanford, Lee County. Recommend rerouting US Bike Route 1 with a strong suggestion for option B to be considered.
All right, we have a motion. Thank you, David.
This is BJ Grieve from Southern Pines. I second that motion. And as a cyclist, I appreciate the 1 mile less that is option B, because anybody doing that route will appreciate that.
All right, we have a motion second. Matt, let's do roll call.
All right. Matt Day, yes. Jack Meadows.
Yes.
Brendan Dawson.
Yes.
Brian Kluchar.
Yes.
Darren Burge.
Yes.
David Montgomery.
Yes.
Deborah Ensminger.
Yes.
Julie Vogel.
Yes.
Morgan DeWitt.
Yes.
BJ Grieve.
Yes.
Tom Tenike.
Yes.
Danielle Orloff.
Yes.
That is unanimous. And that is the end of our segment.
So going on to discussion items. 6A is the Second Avenue corridor study update in Solid City.
So I just wanted to give everybody a quick update on where things are with the study. So TJ Cog, which is the lead planning agency for TARPO, we are under contract with Stantec to develop the corridor study, and work has started on it. Just as a reminder, this is a project that's being funded with statewide planning and research funds that we applied for through NCDOT. So those funds provide 80%, and then the state actually matches 10%, and the town of Siler City is matching the remaining 10% for a total budget of $77,000. This is a very quick turnaround project. So we started work in March, and we're hoping to wrap it up in June. Although some of the closeout work will probably spill into next year. So Second Avenue, just to give y'all an idea, is a former alignment of US 421 that went through the central part of Siler City. It has a mix of 4-lane and 5-lane sections, but it only carries about 6,000 to 8,000 vehicles a day, which is well under the capacity of a 4 to 5 lane, and is really under capacity for a 2 to 3 lane also. So 4 to 5 lanes out there is really overkill. So this study is going to identify potential improvements to the corridor based on the idea of doing a road diet. So removing some of those lanes and repurposing that space for other uses, trying to work through what that appropriate cross section for the road would be. There is an online survey that is out right now that the public can hit to. It's in English and Spanish. We do also have a working group that has been established to sort of help provide some guidance to this project. That group will be meeting 3 times in total. They have met once already. And then we are also going to have what's called a project symposium, which is really just a fancy way of essentially education and input session. That will be on next Tuesday at 5:30 at the Wren Memorial Library in Siler City, to give folks an opportunity to learn about the study and then to provide input on what their vision for this quarter would be. And that meeting will also have a virtual option through Zoom, and will also be recorded and available on YouTube. Watch it. And then to follow up on that, as I said, it's a very quick turnaround project. There will be a 3-day charrette that will be in mid-May, where the consultant team will be on site in Siler City, working on the specific design plans, tossing out ideas, trying to narrow it down to a preferred design option. And that will also be an opportunity for various groups of folks to be invited to come in and provide specific feedback. And then there would be an additional public outreach event sometime in early June to present the recommendations to the public. And we're aiming to have the draft report done by mid-June and final by the end of June. So there is a website for the project. It's there on the screen. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Matt. 6B is high impact, low cost project submissions.
So this is more just a heads up to let you know something sort of after the fact. But a few weeks back, Division 8 did reach out to me to ask if TARPO could submit up to 5 projects for them to consider for the high impact, low cost funding program. And this is a program that funds, small roadway projects, things that are under $1.5 million cost. So I reached out to the local jurisdictions to the various TCC members that were in Division 8 and asked for your project ideas. Received a number of suggestions from y'all. And then I also went through our CTPs to see if there were project ideas in there that might be worth submitting. So at the end of the day, I did pick 5 projects. So one from Siler City, one from Sanford, one from Pittsburgh, one from Aberdeen, and those were the 4 communities that submitted requests to me. And then I also identified one project from the Moore County CTP, the turn lane project near Union Pines High. So those were the 5 that we submitted, and now it's in Division 8's hands to go through the projects we submitted, the projects that other projects submitted, and figure out what they're going to want. Any questions?
Matt, do you have a timeline on when they'll be with funding?
I don't know. Brian, did you hear that question? Is there a timeline for when you'll be selecting projects?
We are hoping to select by the end of next month to get it on to the board for board approval. And so we are reviewing those projects right now. Should have some idea within the next couple weeks which ones move forward.
All right, 6C is RTAC member reappointments and new appointments.
And this is just another heads up item, just so y'all are aware. We have had a few recent changes on the RTAC. So Orange County, we had a change in their alternate. So Sally Green is their new alternate. For the municipal representative for Chatham County, Curtis Brown, who was previously the alternate, will now be the primary member. And then James Bose will be the new alternate. And then Moore County did appoint a new municipal representative as well, which is Pat Pizzella from and then just as a heads up reminder, we do our bylaws do require that we revisit the RTAC appointments every 2 years, and we do half of the counties in 1 year and half of the counties in the other year. So this is the year for the lead Orange County appointments. Orange County, you're already set because Orange County always does its appointments every year or so. You're good to go. But on the Lee County seats, we will need the county commissioners to vote on appointment or reappointment of their member. And we'll also need the Sanford and Broadway mayors to agree on the municipal representative. And the goal would be to have those in place for the August meeting. Additionally, we change over based on the fiscal year. So August would be the first meeting in the next.
6D is STIP updates.
All right. So we only have a few STIP updates that have happened lately. In March, there was a change on U5815A, which is the sort of the south end of the US 1 Super Street project in Aberdeen. So just the section from Roseland to 8th Street. That is the section that is further out in time. The B section is sooner and the A section is further out in time. But this would be to delay the right of way on that A section from 2022 to 2025. That does not affect the construction schedule, which is still out past 2025. And then in April, there were 2 project changes. So one is addition of a new project, which is for planning and environmental study only, related to roadway improvements at the Triangle Innovation Point mega site. They've heard some news about that location. And then R5724B, which is the Hillsborough Street project in Pittsburgh. That would have a delay in its right of way utilities by 1 year. 2 to 23. Any questions?
The last discussion item is the spot office. Discussion item.
Yes. So just to make sure y'all are aware of what's going on. I know we've talked about this in more detail at our last meeting in terms of what the likely process would be. But NCDOT staff did indicate within the last few days that they expect the new draft STIP document will probably be released next month in May. So when that is released, that is the draft document that will be based on that, going through the delivery project set and then the P3, P4, P5 method that we talked about back in February. So it'll be the result of that process. And then we will have several months to work through our own process of whether we want to request any project swaps or schedule changes or things like that. We would then have to submit any of those requests back to NCDOT by fall so that they can release a final draft STIP in the winter. And that is because they need somewhere around 6 months to go through all of their approval processes before they can, approve the final STIP, which would be in summer of 23. And then sort of running in parallel to this process that'll create the 24 to 33 STIP, we will also need to start thinking about the next process because we are expecting that we will have to submit projects into the prioritization 7 process sometime in summer of 23. So we'll need to work through how we're going to do that. So just to kind of visualize it, this is a slide that is provided by DOT, and it is hard to read, but the general idea is that today is sort of at the far left there, and you've got 2 parallel processes going on here. You've got programming on that top line, which is the development of the 24 to 33 STIP, and then you've got P7 on the bottom line happening at the same time in terms of starting tasks. That would be preparing for the 26 to 35 STIP that would come out of P7. So this spring to fall of this year is when we have outreach sessions, public comment period, coordination on project swaps, all those kind of things. In the fall, DOT will then work on developing their revised draft STIP. And at the same time, they will start having meetings of the P7 work group that will create the rules for P7. And then over the winter, in the winter, they will release the revised draft. And then in the winter and spring of next year, that's when they'll have the public comment period on that revised draft, work on finalizing the final version, and then adopt that final version in summer of 23. And at the same time, in summer of 23, the Board of Transportation would approve method for P7 scoring, and we would open up the submittal window for new P7. So really, in terms of TARPO's role in this, we have 2 sort of important pieces coming up. One is that discussion of project swaps. It's really hard to have a discussion about that without having the draft STIP document, which is why we're not having that discussion today. But I'm pretty confident that at our June meeting, we're going to have a discussion about setting up a method for how we want to handle those discussions. Because we would have to make a decision likely at our They haven't set a deadline yet, but I'm assuming if they want it in fall, we should plan that we need to make a decision at our August meeting, with the possibility that maybe we can extend that to October, depending on what final deadline DOT comes out. But I'm expecting we probably have to make a decision at all. And then the other thing that we need to work on is, I hate to say it, but thinking about developing your list of projects for P7. You've got a year, but I think it's time to start thinking about it. Typically, the way we have done this in the past, we will set up a subcommittee that'll come up with some rules, sort of put some guardrails on the process for submittals. And then based on those rules, we will then turn it around to counties and say to each county, work with your municipalities and come up with a list of X number of projects that you would like to submit. And then we bring those back for consideration when it's time for the TCC and TAC to approve things next spring or summer. So typically in the past, we have done that sometime in the winter, that we've set up that subcommittee and started that process. So there's still a lot of time to work out those details, but especially for jurisdictions that have any interest in submitting some bike and ped projects, if they are projects that you haven't done a whole lot of sort of engineering work on yet, and you don't have a good handle on the cost estimates, I really suggest you take this year, you have some time, really get a good handle on what those projects are specifically, and a good idea of the cost estimate, because just based on past experience, that is the number one issue we run into on the bike and ped projects. Just not having a good handle on what the project is specifically and how much it's going to cost. So that is all I have on that.
Any questions for Matt on spot update? Okay, the last item on our agenda is member updates from around the region, open discussion. Time to share.
All right, Matt. All right. So if there's no discussion, then we will recess. Just as a reminder, please do come back for the beginning of the next meeting, because we're just in recess. The meeting's not over. So please do come back. And there is a separate link for the second part of the meeting. So, all right.
See you in a few minutes.
Thanks, Matt.